Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to have some fun sharing some of our personal life ahas with y'all. The kind of wisdom that only comes with time. Notice I didn't say age, but welcome to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin, and we're back to share some truths we wish we knew when we were younger. I remember growing up, my mom always would say, "But I have wisdom to share," to which we'd roll our eyes. So if you're listening and you're young, you probably don't give a lick about these life pointers. And we say, fair. But we believe most of our listeners, like us, have a sizable list of wise phrases and reminders that would have really instructed and helped our younger selves. So we're here to share a few of those with you today, and we welcome hearing about yours too.
Which you can do when you join our Facebook group called The Things We Know Podcast. So, Kari, why don't you take us away?
Okay, here's my first one. Expectations kill joy.
Amen.
I know, amen. I actually know someone who's probably the first person who said it to me, who has these initials tattooed on her wrist.
Oh,
and I've thought about doing the same thing because it became something I repeated, and my kids quote me on this now. And I know it doesn't always work for them. They still have dashed expectations. But what it did for me was liberate me. I think if anyone has any relationship to, wanting things to go well and being a planner and envisioning and getting excited and anticipating, you can slip really easily into high expectations. And what happens when you have high expectations, Lisa?
They never come to fruition. Not at least in the way you think they should, right? So you get really attached to the outcome and you miss all the ways there are other opportunities for that exact thing to come true.
Amen. I could just listen to you talk all day. It's true. And I didn't obviously know that nobody, great expectations was something we grew up with, this idea that, you're expected, at least the way I was raised, like things were expected and you had to meet those. And so I brought that to everything: relationships, events, experiences, people's reactions to a gift or to some news. I would be so disappointed if they didn't go the way I imagined. And I think over time I did learn that. I think I wasted a lot of time missing the goodness and the joy and just the beauty that was there instead, right? And relationships, I think that's a big one. When you're so stuck on what you expect, you're missing all that's being given. You're missing a lot of good stuff. You're missing being surprised. You're missing being like opened up and stretched and, kind of overwhelmed in a beautiful way, because all you're doing is saying, nope, didn't meet that expectation. Right. Nope. And so I don't know. I think I could go deeper on that. We could go deeper on all these today, I'm sure, but that is a big one for me. And I'd love to bring that not just in my parenting, but into my relationship and into all my relationships, really, and into my coaching. So, but as a mom, it's huge when I'll say, maybe let go of what you're picturing and let yourself be surprised. And my kids, even though they roll their eyes with my wisdom, they have agreed that sometimes that's been helpful.
That's hilarious. Well, and is this also perfectionism?
I think so. Yeah. I think I definitely had, and I was raised by, my parents did great. And, my dad was a Marine fighter pilot, very, bring your A game or go home. Right. So I do think, and I think we also perceived expectations that he didn't even always have on us. So it could have come from that. Perfectionism, absolutely. That perfectionism kind of sets it up that I expect it to be or look a certain way. And if it isn't, there's failure.
Right. And I just think so many of us, and women in particular, women are wired to want to have all our ducks in a row before we try anything. And again, we could go into that. I could go deep on that, but and for those of you, and we've never even really talked about this, but we do have a YouTube channel, and these are going up uncut and visual on our YouTube channel. So those of you who are watching on YouTube will see this, but I will describe it. I always think about something like expectations or being attached to an outcome, and it's got to be this way or no way. You're sort of in a tunnel, right? You have blinders on. And so you really only see the exact way you think it's supposed to be. And if you let go of expectations, if you let go of that outcome, then all of a sudden you sort of open your arms, or that's what I'm doing, open your arms wide. And so all these things that were outside of the tunnel that you put yourself in with perfectionism, all these opportunities show up, but you miss them if you've just got blinders on the whole time. And so it's just like you miss all the ways things could happen because it's got to be a certain way. You got to be checking boxes.
That's a like perfect analogy and visual. I love it. And I think our listeners could probably follow along with that. Yeah.
Yes.
Like when you're so focused on looking for one thing, you miss so much. So, yeah.
And also, like, what if you've got this expectation of like 5 things have to happen for something to come to fruition and 4 of them do? We always focus on the one that doesn't.
True.
And so then again, you're missing the outcome. You're missing all the wonderful things because you're like, but that didn't happen, so yeah.
True. Yeah.
That's a good one.
I love it.
I love it. So is it my turn?
It is.
So this one makes me laugh, but I love it. So my thing I wish I knew when I was a teenage girl is that boys do not have their shit together the way you think they do. Like, what I would have given to realize that as a teenage girl. I grew up with a sister. My parents divorced when I was in the 7th grade. So for all intents and purposes, most of my teenage years, I was with a single mom who was also dating. So I was in a household just of women, right? And so, we were all kind of going through this, and my mom was young. So we were all probably going through this unspokenly at the same time, I actually didn't realize this until my son turned his teenage years. And then I was like, holy shit balls, like he's suffering the same way I did as a teenager. Even music, and I'm going to pull up a quote because I know we said we were going to quote lyrics here. So I was trying to figure out a song that really, you could do all of it. But what's funny to me is even listening to men writers and musicians, which I mostly did because I loved 80s British pop, I associated in. So when they were singing, even though it was their words, I thought I was singing it as me, right? So here's a good one. So this is Come Back and Stay by Paul Young. One of my favorite concerts I ever saw in my entire life.
Me too. We haven't talked about this.
God.
I actually snuck out and went to a Paul Young concert.
It was my first concert.
Sorry, Mom.
It was my first concert. I was in the 3rd row and it was him and Nick Kershaw. And oh my God, until I saw London Suede last year, I would have said no, hands down, that was my favorite concert of all time. All right. So here's the lyrics. So since you've been gone, I opened my eyes and I realized what we had together. Will you ever return? I'll have you change your mind. If you won't stay mine, just love me forever. Love me forever. Why don't you come back? Please hurry. Okay. In my mind, I'm singing that, right? I don't even realize that it's a man singing it. Now that I know this, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. But it really didn't. I didn't get it until I had a teenage boy. And you have 3 boys, but you had a sister. But you also had a brother, though. So did you get this earlier?
A little. It's funny. I was so certain you were going to quote The Cure and Boys Don't Cry. And like, I beg forgiveness, plead with you. Because that's what I was hearing in my head when you said that. Again, nice. Another 80s nod. I had a really what I watched with my brother was this really sweet, open beating heart that is not typical with boys, maybe because he only had sisters until he got his heart stomped on a few times. And then he kind of became that cooler exterior.
Interesting.
He used to make pop-up cards, like he was just this like really sweet, earnest, and he still is. He's a wonderful, but I remember noticing that, but I don't think he was my big brother. Right. And so I don't think I associated that. And your topic really brings me back into those lyrics and into those moments of, thinking that. But when you first said it, as a mom of 3 teenage boys, well, one's in his 20s now, I was like, I know that. I mean, who thinks that they have their shit together? But you're right. And my version of it was cracking myself up driving around with a van full of teenage boys and like preteens and realizing, God, if I could go back to my 14-year-old self, I would say, do not be that impressed. Do not think that they have it all together. And I hate to tell you, they're not thinking about you, but they're not thinking about much. It's like they're not thinking anything bad about you either. They're thinking, right. I think it was Friday Night Lights. There's this famous scene between the coach and his only child, a teenage daughter, and she's starting to date, and he's like, boys are either thinking about food because they're hungry, or they're thinking about sex. That's it. And I think as a mom of boys who have a lot of dimensions and who have high emotional intelligence, that's an oversimplification.
Yeah.
But just like you said, we are all human. We're all insecure. We're all people who, want to find connection. And so it's a really good reminder when you become a parent that, oh, wow, I wasted a lot of time thinking.
It's not wasted. I mean, it's kind of like what I said at well, I don't know if I said this in the first pod, but like, I wish we could bring girls through this easier. And it is what it is. I will have to share the moment I knew that boys didn't have it together. And Liam, if you're listening, I am so sorry that I'm sharing this story, but I know you're okay with it because we laugh about it all the time. So he was like in the 7th grade, and he had this little girlfriend, and she called to invite him over on a Sunday afternoon, and he called her back, and he had to leave a message. And the message was like, hey, yeah, I'll be there at the perfect time. Bye. And then like hangs up, right? Oh my God. We have laughed about that. He was in the 7th grade. We have laughed about that for probably like, I'll be there at the perfect time.
That's like a rom-com line.
And I remember, I can see it as clear as a bell. I remember standing there next to him when he made this phone call and going, holy shit, boys don't have it together. Like he had no clue, and he was freaking out, and was
pacing probably.
Oh my God, it was like I had to be next to him. I let Mom stand here while I call her. I
know, right? Oh gosh, I think of we're gonna have to in another episode go back to some of those what I found out was going on the other end of the call kind of someday, because I have so many memories rushing at me right now. But you're reminding me that I was really surprised too when Griffin was in 5th grade. He was probably the more girl crazy one early on, and I was saying goodnight to him. He might have been 4th grade, and he said, Mom, there's this new girl in my class, Fiona. When she smiles, my heart feels warm. Aww. Or maybe he said my chest feels warm or something like that. But it was the sweetest thing. And I thought, oh gosh, wow, like boys feel that way too. Right. I never knew they expressed themselves that way. And that was a window. So that's a really good reminder.
And so I'll just wrap this topic up, because you're right. We could, again, all of these, we could go down a rabbit hole, but what I will say is the other night, Charlotte and I were watching Sex and the City for the umpteenth time. And I don't know what happened, but some guy, was like fawning over Kari Bradshaw. And Charlotte literally looked at me and goes, women have so much power. Why do we give it away? And I thought, well, at least at 16, she recognizes that. I didn't even recognize that back then. So as with anything, I do think this younger generation gets it in a way that we don't, or didn't, I should say. But still, good God Almighty, if I could go back in time and say, Lisa, let it go. It's not as they are freaking out the same as you are.
This is true. And I think we live in a less binary time where there's these mysteries. So that's helpful.
Absolutely.
They all get wiser with time.
Yeah. All right. Your turn.
Okay. My next one. When you overfunction, everyone around you will be more than willing to underfunction.
Oh, that's wow. All right. Say more.
Okay. I mean, this is funny. This is setting up a little bit of, my background with, working hard, great expectations, over functioning. I definitely was raised in a, I have air quotes, traditional kind of family where women were taught to emulate women who are really selfless and do a lot for other people. Grandmothers, my mother, also had careers, my mom and all that. I think but there was this expectation of really thinking of everything, anticipating everyone's needs. And that does come really naturally to me. And I think people who are friends with me really appreciate that. People who are around me really appreciate that. And I think at some point, especially in careers and in jobs, where I realized I am really doing more than everyone.
Mhm.
And rather than get bitter, that was when I really learned how to express my needs or my frustration and ask for more mutual, task division in relationships, in work situations, in a household where everyone shares things. But I will trip over it still sometimes and say, oh yeah. And I just remember this moment, especially as a mom of boys who's wanting to raise boys who don't think that women take care of everything.
Yeah.
At some point, probably because we were in a hurry and I didn't really want the mess, I think I would just give in a like absentmindedly, because I had to get to work, get them to school. I would cut their waffles for them or something. But I remember they were pretty little. And I just remember this horrifying realization of, what am I doing? And I pulled my hands behind my back. And they looked at me for a second, kind of bummed, whichever kid it was, like, and then they figured it out and it was messy. And you know what? They felt so much better. So, it's just this realization that when we assume and we become a little too self-important around what other people need from us, we're just setting it up that way. And that is a recipe for bitterness or resentment if you don't speak up, but also you are blocking the potential growth of others around you. And I see it everywhere. I see it even in, volunteering settings a lot. People are like, they need me. I need to do this, but they're not really handing it off to the next person to come in and take over and bring their own genius to it. I see it obviously in relationships. I see it among siblings. It's really a beautiful introduction to boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I sorry, I'm going to reference Sex and the City again, because I do actually think it was the same episode where Charlotte's dating Trey and Trey's mom goes over and cuts his steak up. And so what I think of that is like, he's a man child, right? And he goes on to be impotent, and it all stems from his mom. And so that's the other thing too, when you're cutting people off from learning how to take care of themselves, like what is that going to do for them in their future? Boy, girl, whatever,
Right.
It's like, what are you not allowing them to learn how to do? I kind of grew up in a household like that. My dad was very, he was never diagnosed OCD, but I'm sure he had it. And so like, I can remember one time making my bed and being so proud of it, and then going in and he was remaking it. I never made my bed again until I moved out. Until I went to fucking college, because I just wasn't allowed, I was like,
Yeah.
fuck that. He's going to remake it. I'm not going to make it. But it is that sense of, you are literally, you think you're helping and you're actually doing exactly the opposite. And then you tend to get overwhelmed. Oh, I've got so much to do. Well, no, like pass some shit off.
Exactly.
Right? Let people do their zone of genius. Just because you can do everything doesn't mean you should.
Totally. It's funny because I think of that with my mom. She just had so much to do and didn't delegate. And so there was a lot we didn't know how to do for a long time until we asked her to teach us, asked her to teach us how to cook. My father didn't take me to get my license until I identified everything under the hood and changed a tire and changed the oil. Now I wouldn't have minded if he took care of that for me. But it's a great story now. It's impressive now. I had the most god-awful license picture thanks to that, but greasy hair.
Literally you had changed oil on the tire and then went and got your license?
Yep.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
Yep. So yeah,
so
that's a good one.
That is a good one.
I think we both meet a lot of people who are struggling with this.
Yes.
Because I think people's identity get caught up in their functions. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I will just side note to, there's still things I do for my kids. And when Liam moved out, he figured out how to do it.
Such a good point.
I always did the laundry. And then Liam moved out. He did his laundry. Of course, he ended up with some red t-shirts, they were supposed to be white, the pink t-shirts.
Pink socks.
Yeah. But you know what? He learned and he's doing it all by himself. He's not bringing his laundry home. He's never brought his laundry home in all the time he's not lived here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Cool.
all right. So the next one is you can't bully yourself or hate yourself into a better whatever job, body, relationship. This one's amazing to me because when I worked in the weight loss industry, I was going to say this is the number one thing I heard, but it's probably the second most popular thing I ever heard, which is somebody'd come to the scale and they'd be like, "You're going to be mad at me." Or, "Can you get mad at me?" I still hear this as a coach. "Can you get mad at me because I didn't do what I said I was going to do?" No. Why on God's green earth would I get mad at you? I can't want it more than you do, right? It does you no good if I get mad at you. And then also that whole sense of I am motivated by being mean to myself. I'm motivated to change. And I just find that insane because to me, it goes back to what you appreciate appreciates. If you're always focusing on what's not going well, whether it's body image, relationship wise, job wise, then you're going to get more of that. What if you looked at what was going well? Even if you're trying to change your job or you're trying to lose weight, which again, we're going to do a whole thing on weight loss. It's a rabbit hole for me, but even if you're trying to change your relationship, whatever it is, if you focus on what's going well, you're going to get more of that. If you focus on what's going well in your job, then you're going to look for a job that has those same things. If you're looking at all the things that are going wrong in your job, chances are you're going to end up in another job like that. You're going to have those same struggles time and time again, because what you appreciate appreciates.
Mm-hmm. Where attention goes, energy flows, right?
Yep, 100%.
That's so true. Wow. This is a big one for me too, because I think about, even when you're training for something, with sports, there's this idea that discipline has to be harsh and mean, when it's not true. Actually, the root of discipline is be a disciple of yourself. So what if you could cheer yourself on into the goals you want to reach, instead of you're never gonna, you're weak, you're worthless, get up, like those kind of messages, which sounds silly to say right now, is actually that inner dialogue that's going on all the time. You can't say I'll never get it, because you're going to make that true. You can't say I don't deserve it. You really, you can obviously, but when you say those things, you really, like you said, you bring a lot of energy to it, and that's what ends up happening. Whereas what we know, and especially in our training as coaches, is there's something productive to be done with judgment. When you notice it, instead of believing it and repeating it and beating yourself up, you get to get curious. Like, what is that really about? Because I think you and I agree. We believe everything has a positive intention for you. So if you could actually sit back and think, gosh, that's harsh. That is really mean what I'm saying to myself. Or that's really a really mean way of looking at myself. What do I like? Where is that coming from? And what do I really want when I say that? That is where you start to, start loving yourself into your goals. Start really, truly cheering yourself on, and actually be more present and, with gratitude for all that you're bringing to it. Right. Yeah. And then you get to shift, you get to change that relationship, just like your relationship with someone else is better when you're kinder. And I think of that. I don't know if it was in Denmark, or I'm going to butcher, I don't remember what country, but there was a scientific experiment that's been done several times over, many times in schools across this country, where they put the exact same plant, exact same light, same amount of hydration, same exact kind of, soil and pot and all that stuff. And they had children say mean things and write mean things and really bring a lot of negative energy around one. And the other one had a lot of encouragement and loving words. These are words, right? This goes into the whole thing about energy. And guess which plant flourished, right? And they've even done it about glasses of water, where you look, under a microscope, and where there's fractured, elements when you look, and where they're like actually beautiful patterns, right? That's
crazy.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the water one. I have heard the plant one. It feels like Denmark or Finland or Netherlands or something cool.
Where they're super smart. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, two things come to mind. one is a cliche in some ways, but it's so true. And it every time it's said to somebody, there's always a, but you would never talk to your friend the way you would talk to that you talk to yourself. Right. So when a friend is struggling through a job or a relationship or body image, you're not like, yeah, you suck. Right. You just wouldn't. And yet we do it to ourselves all the time. And then the other one I always think is funny is like, when a baby's learning to walk and it falls down, you don't go, you're a dumbass baby. Like, why can't she walk?
Why did you just give up? That's not working out.
You know what? You just sit over there forever. Right. No, you go, oh my God, come on. Right.
Yeah.
But Jesus H. Christ, we do it to ourselves.
We do.
And we think it's going to make a difference, and it never, ever does.
No. So try something different. Yeah. Okay. Is this mine?
Yep.
My next one. Okay. This one is dear and active in my life as a parent. And I really wish I knew this as a teen myself. And it's all thoughts and feelings are real. They're just not all true. So
tell me more. That one, I when you wrote this up, I was like, this one, I want to hear more, because I'm not sure even I gather all of this.
So you're no stranger to this idea of the stories we tell ourselves, the stories in our head.
Yeah.
The best example I can give of that is, a sibling argument, right? They're leaving me out, or they don't like me anymore, or I'm not going to be picked for that team, right? Like there's a lot of, again, going back to what you said, there's a lot of evidence we can collect, right? That could make us say those things to ourselves and say these thoughts and feelings that generally have to do with self-criticism, but also perceptions of belonging, perceptions of skill, of talent. And because that inner voice can be mean. And what you and I call the critter brain is only a part of us, right? But it's that part of us that is trying to keep you safe. So it says things to keep you from putting yourself out there too far. So if Griffin, I'm thinking of this because this was first said to him, and I really thought this was beautiful, which, my brothers didn't want me to go with them today when they went, they left without him, but they didn't even know he was even around. Right. And that they're real, this thought you're having, or this feeling that you're having. Sometimes it's just a thought. Sometimes it's a feeling. It feels real. We don't want to discount it. We don't want to always just say that's a lie and let it go. Like give it some respect. All these things you're saying are real, because you feel them and you think them, but they're not all true. So if, when we can actually step back and just give ourselves a second to sort of sort that, and there's a way to do it. Byron Katie is somebody who has this, body of work called The Work. And it's these 4 questions, right? Which is, what is the story you're telling yourself? Is it true? Do you absolutely know it's true? Can you prove it? 9 times out of 10, we'll know.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So how do you respond? How do you feel? What happens to you in your body? And how do you spend your time when you're believing it? Right. Well, I'm kicking the chair. I'm pulling my hair out. I feel sick to my stomach, or some people might be like, I'm eating, or, something like, oh, okay. So who would you be without that thought if you didn't believe it? Like if you can't prove that it's true, who would you be? Right. So it gives you a chance to get a little freedom from that and let go and stop riding every wave of emotions and thoughts to the shore. Right. I'm just going to take the waves that I think are true, or I'm just going to feel the ones that I can't help but feeling. But it gives you a little power over your thoughts and feelings, because sometimes they are coming in just crashing and crashing. And I think when I was young, that's what it was to be a teenager with all those hormones, is all these things. It's funny how these tie together today, Lisa.
It totally does. I was just thinking the same thing.
He's not calling, or she didn't, call me first, therefore I'm not her best friend anymore, or those things. Right. My parents don't trust me because they said I couldn't go to that concert. All these things are going through my head. But if I had that tool, that ability to go, okay, these feel real. Are they true? And how can just asking myself that shift my energy?
100%. I mean, what I'm hearing in a lot of the examples you're giving too is this idea of always and never, right? And always and never is very rarely true. And so it's asking yourself, I mean, you've said it, but to me, my favorite question is that true? Because the answer is rarely yes. It's almost always no, it's not true. Sometimes it's, I don't know. And if it's yes, then you've got new facts to work from.
Totally.
Right. And so that's the first thing that jumps to mind is that all these generalizations that we do. And if you're having this kind of conversation with somebody, asking some curiosity questions, right? So your kid says, I'm never going to make this team, or nobody likes me. Okay, tell me a time when you felt like nobody liked you. Like, how does nobody like you? When did that happen? So that they can process it too. Because if you just allow for that statement to be true, then they're going to keep believing it.
True. And I would even insert in there, that's a sucky feeling.
Yes, 100%. Validate. Yep.
Yeah.
Reflect. For sure. Yeah.
That feels real. Is it though?
Right. Yeah. You can, and that's just it, right? Feelings are valid, but are they true? And so it is just that simple question. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, because yes, we can spiral. It's funny because I'm sitting here thinking, this is the things we know. And yet these are the things we wish we knew.
Exactly.
Back then, right? And I can imagine that some of these things, I mean, again, you and I come from a coaching space. We learned a lot of this stuff in the last several years. I know I did. I didn't grow. I don't know, had I not gone through coaching, if I would know some of these things. So there could be people our age going, I never thought of that, right? It's not just about age or time passed. It is, I do think, partially our learnings. Would you agree?
I think it's our learnings. I think it's our parents' generation versus ours. I would say if both our moms were listening right now, they would say, I knew some of that stuff. You just didn't hear it. I'm certain the wisdom of women of any generation. But yes, to your point, I work as you do with brilliant, successful women who fall into these traps a lot, especially, we're just conditioned to, believe the things we're seeing, but we're not really examining, right? And so we think we're seeing, right, in our perceptions. And so I think these are really helpful tools that we are so grateful. I'm so grateful, not only just as a human, but as a mother, that I can kind of help that before that train gets too far off the track.
Right. We can say it, they can hard roll their eyes all they want, but it's going to go in.
It's true.
They are going to hear it. All right. So the final one, which we're actually our next pod, it goes deep into this. So I'm not going to, but all emotions are welcome and resisting them is futile. So I'm not going to go deep in this. I'm going to share a little, you can share a little, but literally the next pod is all about this. Resisting any emotion in my mind is insane. If you're angry, be angry. If you're sad, be sad. If you're happy, be happy. And that might feel like a weird one, but, I'll go deeper into this next time, but like you might be in grief and have that day where you feel really happy and you think, oh shit, I shouldn't feel happy because I'm in grief. No, be happy because the grief will come back. So, be happy. Trying not to be any of these things. Pushing it way down it's going to pop back up. And it's probably going to pop back up at an inopportune time in a passive aggressive way. And so we're going to go so much deeper in the next pod. But to me, I think, girls and boys, you reference boys don't cry, right? Girls and boys are taught a certain way to be emotional. Again, I think this generation's a little different, this up and coming, our kids' generation, but for us, since we're looking back and talking to our 14-year-old selves, I wish I had known it was okay to be angry. We were taught sugar and spice and everything nice.
Totally. Gosh, I was told, I think my sister once, and because she was taught, she and I went to the same college, and she was an RA, and she was walking by with these really sweet girls on her floor. And I think, as a freshman, I think I was a walking emotion. I am pretty emotional anyway. And I'm also, as you know, always kind of brutally just transparent. And so we're walking by, and I said hi to my sister and hi to these other girls. I said, how are you? And they said, good, how are you? And I was like, okay. And that's all I said. And and later she said, I don't know if people really want to know, like, you're just okay, and she was trying to be helpful. I am
Right.
not at all demonizing her, because that is so
Right,
funny.
right.
And that's true. It was, you were, and it goes into like a deep thing that I had to learn in life, that you're still lovable even when you don't have your shit together, that you're still lovable when you're sad or morose or moody or unpleasant. And I really believed that to be lovable, or just to be likable, or to be worthy of friends, I had to be kind of fun and up and, good vibes. And this is what started this for us, was this, oh, come on, like this idea that people should be good vibes only. And you see it a lot out in social media.
Yeah.
I don't want to be friends with you, because you're not going to sit in the dark with me. And I'm not even sure you're able to sit in the dark to let me in to sit with you. I'm not sure. What I do know from a lot of years and some coaching and, just being that kind of friend, is people who are uncomfortable with their pain end up hurting everyone around them. And so I think this idea that we suppress it, I have a lot of sympathy for that. It sounds like I'm criticizing it, but I have a lot of sympathy for it. And God, I wish people knew that if you knew that allowing all emotions to the surface meant you'd have that deeper, that much more authentic joy, wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't you allow it? So I think that's kind of where that comes from. And I'm not saying let's all walk down the street and go, shitty, how are you? I mean, there's time and there's place, and I probably could have learned to just pass and go, good, thanks. But yeah, there's got to be a place for it to be okay, not to be in a great place. And
okay to not be okay.
Yes, I was trying to avoid saying that.
Oh, well, you didn't say it, I did.
It's okay to not be okay, but it's true. It is okay.
Cliches are cliches for a reason.
Totally. And yes. And in fact, I love this image. I have recently gotten really into learning. I like to learn new things. Kintsugi pottery, which is the Japanese form of repairing broken pottery with gold.
I've heard about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with gold bond. And the reason to do that is not only does it make it stronger, but it reveals where the cracks were, and in a more beautiful way. So the idea being, like, with, we go through hard things, and we overcome really difficult parts of our life and some pain, only to be put back together again and feel stronger and more beautiful in a unique way.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that was our 6 things we wish we had known on the things we do know.
Yes.
We can share a ton more. We do have, and we will.
And we want you to share too. We want you all to go to our Facebook group and join if you haven't joined, and tell us there some of the things, some of your wisdom. I would love it. I'm open to wisdom now.
100%. All right. Well, for now, that's the things we know. So we will see you / you'll hear us soon again.
Bye.